was 20 at the time, while Joseph was 40. Born in July 1999, Emily was a New Hampshire native with a bright future. She was born when her mom was still a freshman in college, but her mom was determined to give her a good life. Emily had 5 half-siblings and a verve for life. She loved all things creative, but her focus was caring for other people. For this reason, she started at esthetician school. However, she soon decided that her ambitions would best be served as a nurse. She started as a licensed nursing assistant in New Hampshire, which is what she was doing when she met Joseph Ferlazzo. Joseph was born in Pennsylvania. He trained as a tattoo artist, and he moved to Vermont in 2012. He first met Emily in 2018, when she was only 19. Joseph was teaching one of her friends, Lauren, to be a body piercer. Lauren was a nervous piercer, so he suggested she do a piercing on someone she knew and was comfortable with to start. So she brought Emily into the parlor.
When she left, I made a comment to Lauren. I said that, I was like, that friend of yours is something special. I said I wouldn't mind making her my next ex-wife.
They didn't start dating then. Emily was seeing someone else, and Joseph moved to Maine for a year or so just after this meeting. But when he returned to Vermont in 2020, he got in contact with Emily. He gave her a tattoo, and they started hanging out regularly.
She told me she had just broken up with her boyfriend. She dyed her hair a different color. She was extremely flirty, and I was receptive to that. I asked her if she wanted to go have a motorcycle ride and see a tour of some of Vermont.
Perhaps Emily was attracted to Joseph's creativity as a tattoo artist, or maybe his bad boy persona. He was much older than her, and he couldn't offer anything in the way of financial security. When they met, he was bouncing around friends' couches.
Rent is expensive in Vermont. I had to get my finances secure so I could, regain my independence.
Emily was still living in her parents' house in New Hampshire, but she spent a lot of time visiting her friends in Vermont. She had the best of both worlds, the stability of her parents and the social life with her friends. She represented attractive financial security. Soon the couple became official, and at the end of the summer, they got engaged.
There was finally enough money in the account to afford first, last, and security, and we found an apartment.
Emily could always fall back on her parents if all else failed, but this whirlwind relationship wasn't without its critics. When they got engaged in September 2020, Emily shared a post on Facebook about negative comments on people's engagements. It read, "When someone gets engaged, buys a house, gets married, has a baby, etc., learn how to say congratulations and that's it. They don't need to hear, 'Are you sure you're ready for that? 'Cause baby, I have some stories.' Or, 'Why y'all didn't get a smaller house to save money, because when we did it, we struggled.' Or, 'You don't need any more kids.' It's not your life to live. Y'all keep your negativity to yourselves. Everybody's outcome will never be the same." She added a comment that read, "At everyone." The post implied that people had been commenting on her engagement to Joseph, criticizing it. He was twice her age, and they'd only been dating for 4 months. It was unsurprising that her friends and relatives had things to say about it. But she ignored them, and in October 2020, she married him. Together, Joseph and Emily bought an old bus and started refurbishing it, hoping to live in it as a camper van. Early in 2021, they moved it to Emily's parents' property to save money on rent, and also so Emily had more support in navigating her new marriage, which was not turning out as blissful as she'd hoped. Around New Year's Eve, she had expressed her struggles to her mom over the phone.
It was a phone call from Emily near midnight, stating that she had been in a fight with him and that he had pushed her and she was crying.
Did you ever observe any marks on her body?
Yes.
Did you ever ask her how she got those marks?
Yes.
What did she tell you?
The gouges down her chest, she said that she acquired them from their dog. The handprint bruise on the back of her arm, she would not tell me where it came from.
Her mom was worried for her safety, but she didn't want to intercede, fearing it would make the situation worse. Having the couple come to live on Emily's parents' property seemed like the safest solution. It would allow them to keep an eye on Joseph's behavior, but not when they went to Vermont. With a population of 1,301, Bolton, Vermont is known mainly as a ski resort. It's in the foothills of the Green Mountains, surrounded by forests and valleys. It's the ideal vacation spot for an outdoorsy couple. But this was to be far from an ideal vacation. Emily seemed nervous about going away with her husband.
Did Emily seem excited to leave, to go on the trip?
She was excited to see her sister-in-law, but it seemed to be taking longer to get the bus ready. So she seemed, I don't know how to describe it. She wasn't upset, but sort of just...
It was understandable, given the problems they'd been having. Far from happy recent newlyweds, Joseph and Emily went on their anniversary trip as a couple close to the breaking point. Stressed about money, arguing constantly, and jealous over each other, as Joseph had been polyamorous until he married Emily and wanted to open their marriage again. Something was bound to go wrong. But Emily couldn't have imagined just how wrong. Joseph's sister, Nicole, and her boyfriend Ariel also came on the trip. They stayed in an Airbnb in Bolton to celebrate Ariel's birthday as well as Emily and Joseph's anniversary. Both couples arrived in Bolton on Friday, October 15th, planning to leave again on Sunday after a pleasant weekend spent rambling, hiking, eating, and enjoying the surroundings. It was the first time that Nicole had ever met Emily, even though Emily had been married to Nicole's brother for a year now. She was curious about her brother's wife and invited the couple to the Airbnb on that first Friday night. But late that evening, Joseph texted her to cancel. Maybe something was off, or maybe the couple were just tired after their journey from New Hampshire. It didn't matter, they'd all see each other again tomorrow.
Instead of going inside and spending time with his sister, Mr. Ferlazzo and Emily argued. They argued because Mr. Ferlazzo had brought Emily on their 1-year anniversary to the very same condo complex that his ex-wife lived. They argued because Mr. Ferlazzo seemed to believe that he didn't have any obligations to be monogamous with his wife, be faithful to her, and she told him she was done. She told him she did not want to be with him, that she could not do it anymore, and that she wanted to leave.
Joseph behaved perfectly normal on Saturday morning.
He greets his sister on Saturday morning with a text and says, "I just made some coffee. I can bring you some." He takes a shower at her Airbnb.
The converted bus had its own shower, but Nicole didn't question why he couldn't use it. She was just looking forward to a nice morning with her brother.
They go to breakfast. When his sister asks where Emily is, he says she's sleeping. They have breakfast, he eats, he drinks a mimosa. They make plans to go to St. Albans, where another friend of his lives. He gives his sister a tattoo. They go out to dinner that night in St. Albans.
To be honest, he seemed fine the whole weekend. I mean, obviously, like he did tell me, like that they fought at one point, and that she ran off. But during breakfast, he seemed fine.
Every married couple has their tiffs. The way Joseph described this fight, it sounded dramatic, with possibly catastrophic implications for their marriage, but not violent.
He basically just said, that they got into a big fight, and that she left the van and ran off, and that she might have maybe met up with a friend or something. But from my understanding, I didn't really understand their relationship. All I understood is that they might have fought often, and he just seemed very distraught that she ran off.
Joseph and Emily's fights were apparently a normal occurrence. What wasn't normal was that Emily had run off. Joseph appeared emotionally distant and out of it all day, which Nicole just attributed to the fight. Maybe he was just worried about his wife and the state of his marriage, which was still so recent. That evening, Joseph moved the camper van to a friend's place in nearby St. Albans, and the three of them went to a party. There was still no sign of Emily. Also at this party was an off-duty police officer. Nothing about Joseph's demeanor struck her as out of the ordinary.
Who was hanging out at the fire?
Myself, Alex, Sarah, Jason, and Joseph.
Did you see Mr. Ferlazzo's van parked on the property?
Yes.
Where was it parked?
It was next to the driveway, a little bit back. You could see it from where we were sitting at the fire.
Was Mr. Ferlazzo drinking?
Not that I recall.
Was anybody using drugs?
Yes.
Who was using drugs?
Joseph.
Do you know what drugs he was using?
It appeared to be marijuana.
And why did you think that?
He was smoking it out of a bong.
How do you know what a bong is?
Life experience and law enforcement experience.
Can you describe Mr. Ferlazzo's demeanor during the evening?
He was very relaxed, casually engaged in conversation.
How long were you hanging out with him by the fire?
I think it was about 4 hours.
During that 4-hour period of time, were you talking with him?
Yes.
What were you talking about?
We talked about our jobs. We talked about the camper that he was renovating. He said that he was going to live out of it. Just small talk.
And while you were talking, you mentioned, did he tell you what he did for a living?
Yes, he said he was a tattoo artist.
And when he told you that he was a tattoo artist, did you recognize him at that point?
Yes.
And tell us about that.
A friend of mine had gotten a tattoo from him years before.
And was that when you made the connection of that you had previously met him?
Yes.
Did you tell Mr. Ferlazzo that you were in law enforcement?
Yes.
How did he react to that?
He continued to engage me in conversation very steadily for the rest of the night.
It didn't seem to bother him at all that she was a member of law enforcement. Why should it? According to the outside world, everything was fine, and he'd done nothing wrong. The only thing that was strange was that he didn't mention Emily at all during their conversation. Not until the very end.
Around what time did the evening end?
I think around midnight.
And how did it end?
Myself, Alex, Sarah, and Jason went into their house, and Joseph went off in the direction of his camper.
As you were retiring for the night, did Mr. Ferlazzo say anything to you?
Yes.
What did he say?
A comment was made where he related something to Emily. He said, "Oh, Emily likes that." And I said to my friend Alex, "Oh, I didn't know that he had a wife."
Had he not spoken about a person named Emily in the 4 hours before?
No.
Did he tell you that he was married?
No.
Did he tell you that his wife had walked off on Saturday and he hadn't heard from her?
No.
Doesn't mention Emily once. Doesn't even mention that he has a wife, as if she just doesn't exist. You've heard testimony that the campfire wraps up around midnight when Mr. Ferlazzo gets back into the van, and while Emily's body lays feet away from him, he sends her phone another text message. "This is far enough!" Exclamation point, exclamation point. "Get your home!" Exclamation point. "I gotta go back to New Hampshire. Are you coming back?"
On Sunday, they parted ways, leaving Vermont. Joseph went back to Emily's parents' property in New Hampshire, where they lived together. He left the camper van behind at a friend's place in St. Albans. When he got back, he told Emily's mom a similar story to what he'd told Nicole, that he and Emily had gotten into an argument in a parking lot on Saturday. But he told Emily's mom that it had gotten physical. He said he tried to stop her from leaving, and then she kicked him in the groin. He'd left to go to the store, and Emily said she was getting an Uber back to New Hampshire.
Emily's family told investigators, Joseph told them that after that fight, Emily got out of their camper van and started walking on Route 2 in Bolton, Vermont. Joseph told family members he drove to a nearby convenience store, but when he came back along that road, his wife was gone.
According to Joseph, this was the last time he'd seen her, and he'd been expecting to find her back at her parents' place already. But her parents weren't convinced.
Did you ask him where Emily was?
Yes.
What explanation did he give you about why Emily wasn't with him?
That they had an argument, and she got out of the bus on Route 2. He drove away to a gas station to let her cool off, and then he came back. She was gone.
What did you observe about him when he arrived?
He was shaking. I interpreted that as he was cold, because he had just driven from Vermont on his motorcycle.
Did he tell you why he wasn't in the van?
No.
Did he tell you where the van was?
I asked him 2 different times, and he told me 2 different answers. One was New Haven, and the other is at a garage of somebody, I believe, named Kurt.
Were either of those locations that he gave you his friend's house in St. Albans?
No.
What did he do while he was at your residence?
He took a shower. He ate the dinner that David had made for us.
Did Joseph tell you that he called the police?
He did not.
Okay. And did you call the police?
My husband, David Bass, called the police with me.
And did the Vermont State Police ultimately speak to Mr. Ferlazzo?
Yes.
And was he at your house when that occurred?
Yes.
The police then contacted Joseph as their first port of call, since he'd been the last person to see her alive.
All dogs, this is Trooper Cody, State Police, looking for Joseph. Okay, thanks. Hey, Joseph, this is Trooper Cody from State Police.
Hello.
Hey, so, I just got off the phone with your father-in-law. And sounds like there's some concern about maybe where Emily may be. Okay, what can you do? It sounds like you, what do we know at this point, I guess? What can you tell me?
What he did next betrayed a guilty conscience. Emily hadn't just disappeared. He'd done something to her, and now he was trying to cover it up. That night, Joseph turned up at his friend Spencer's house. He wanted Spencer to drive him back to St. Albans to pick up the camper van. But when they got to St. Albans, they found the camper van already surrounded by police. Joseph knew what the police would find. When he saw them, he panicked and he told Spencer to drive away.
What did you think when you saw those police vehicles?
Alarm bells went off in my head, and then he said, just go to the end of the road. It was a dead-end road, and he said, turn around. And then I turned around, and he instructed me to drive past the police.
Spencer was a good friend, but he wasn't about to let Joseph get away with murder. He demanded to know what was going on.
I asked him, what's going on, man? You need to tell me what's going on if I'm going to be driving past a police officer. He responded to me with, there's a lot going on. I wish I could see my grandmother. And then I said, what is going on? He said, Emily is back in the van. I said, is Emily alive? He said, no. And I asked, did you hurt her? He said, yes.
Just then, Spencer realized a fact that would scare anybody. He had a murderer riding shotgun. Scared for his life, he told Joseph to get out of the car, and he phoned the police.
Vermont 911, where is your emergency?
Yes, my name is Spencer Lemons. I've got a guy that is going towards St. Albans. He said I did something really bad. I said, what did you do? And he said that his wife is inside that box. And I said, is she alive? And he goes, no.
Inside it, they found 8 garbage bags. Those garbage bags contained human remains. They also found a Glock handgun underneath the pillows on the bed, and ammunition and a silencer stored in a basket nearby. In a butcher's block in the kitchen, there was a blood-stained knife. There was blood on the mattress and on the wood underneath it where it had been laying, suggesting someone had turned it over to hide the stain. Similar bloody stains were found in the camper van shower, alongside a bottle of bleach and other cleaning materials. All this was the horrifying evidence that proved a murder had taken place in the converted bus, and that the killer had tried to cover it up. 14 hours later, at around 2 p.m. on October 19th, an officer spotted Joseph at a gas station where she just happened to be buying lunch.
He was getting a drink out of the cooler and sort of stepping back from the cooler at that time.
Did you recognize the male?
When he closed the door to the cooler and he turned around and we made eye contact, I was like, wait, I know this person. In that moment, I couldn't figure out where or why. My brain was still trying to catch up with me. But I knew I recognized him.
Okay. And did you ultimately determine how you recognized him?
Yeah, so he walked to the right and then turned to walk up to one of the aisles towards the front of the store, and he turned and looked at me again, and we locked eyes again, and at that point I recognized that it was Joseph Ferlazzo.
Okay. And how did you recognize him? What have you seen?
So I had spent, like I said, a lot of that morning sort of scouring through social media. I had seen dozens of pictures of Mr. Ferlazzo as well as Emily. And then also our public information officer for the state police was at the barracks that morning. He was preparing a press release that he was getting ready to put out with photos, which included Mr. Ferlazzo. And he had asked me to proofread that for him just before I went to the store. So it was like another look at Mr. Ferlazzo's face right before I left.
Okay. And where did that mail go?
Up to the front of the store to the cash register area.
What was the next thing you did with that information?
I told Brandon that's Joseph Ferlazzo. He's heading out of the store. I'm going to follow him.
Did you approach him outside?
I followed behind him. He was walking along the front of the store.
Okay. And what did you do? What was your interaction?
I said, Joseph.
Okay.
And the male kept walking, no acknowledgement. So then I said something to the effect of, hey, state police, can you stop for a second? I just need to talk to you.
Okay. And did the male stop?
He did.
Okay. And what did you do? Once the individual stopped, did they stop and actually turn around to face you and interact with you?
He did turn around and then took a very long, almost exaggerated drink of his energy drink, just looking at me, sort of the proverbial deer in the headlight look. It seemed to me, based on my training and experience, it was almost as if he were trying to figure out, fight, flight, freeze, what do I do?
Okay. And what did you say to him?
I said, Joseph, it's you, right? Are you okay?
Okay. And what did he do in reply?
He took his drink down and his body language sort of deflated. And he said, no, I'm not okay.
How did you respond to that?
I said, well, there's a lot of people looking for you and looking for Emily, and we're just trying to figure out where Emily is and what's going on. Her family's very worried about her.
And what was his response?
Let's go.
He said, let's go. Okay.
She took him into custody. They sat him down for an interview immediately. He seemed to be very cooperative, and this wasn't just spur of the moment. He'd been on the run for 14 hours. He'd had time to plan out what he might say if caught.
Sure, you already talked to Spencer. Plain simple, and it's something that I cannot do.
He admitted what he'd done without fanfare.
As soon as I put the vehicle in park, my wife went completely berserk, completely psychotic. And I shot her.
He painted a picture of a romantic weekend that had gone horribly wrong, thanks to the ingratitude of his wife. He suggested he hadn't known what he was doing when he picked up the gun.
Something inside my head, I remember feeling really warm, and I remember feeling worried, and I don't know, something inside me said enough is enough.
Something inside of him said, enough is enough. But instead of walking away from Emily, going into his sister's Airbnb, out of the van, instead he executes his plan. He got up from the couch, he went to the closet, he grabbed this Glock 19 with this silencer. He walked over to the bed. Emily's head was resting on this pillow. He picked up this throw pillow from the couch. He jumped onto the bed. He put this throw pillow over her face, and he shot her once and twice, directly into the left side of her head, killing her. Both of those bullets exited her skull on the right side of her head and came to rest inside the very pillow that her head was laying on. The evidence presented in this trial shows that Emily posed no threat to Mr. Ferlazzo. And in fact, his story that she had a gun was directly contradicted by the fact that both of the pistols were his. Emily did not have a gun. His story that he remembers Emily's body falling after he killed her is directly contradicted by the physical and forensic evidence. Dr. Shapiro told you that her head was resting on something when she was killed. And immediately after killing her, rather than calling 911, any police agency, his ex-wife, or his sister, who was just yards away from him, Mr. Ferlazzo instead shuts off Emily's phone because, in his words, quote, he wasn't going to use it and she wasn't going to use it. After he shut off her phone, Mr. Ferlazzo used his 6-foot, 200-pound body to carry her 5'1", 130-pound body into the shower. He bagged up this bloody pillow, bagged up this red throw pillow. He bagged up this bloody pillowcase, this bloody sheet. He then put her shoes, her glasses, her wallet, and her phone in a plastic grocery bag, but was careful to keep her ID. He put new sheets, a new blanket, and new pillows on the bed. Then he gets back in the very bed he just killed his wife in. And just a few hours later at 7:48 a.m., while his wife's body is in his shower, he texts his sister, "I can't sleep. Any interest in going for breakfast?" And even makes a recommendation on where to go. "Maxie's has really good breakfast, exclamation point. I just French pressed some coffee. Have you had coffee yet?" And off they go to Maxie's, where Mr. Ferlazzo has eggs and a mimosa. Then he drives his van from Bolton to St. Albans, parks the van on the property of his best friend. And rather than telling them that Emily's in the van, that he killed her, that he had to kill her, he tells them she took off. And then he sets up shop and starts to give his sister a tattoo. But not before sending Emily's phone a text message. "Whatever, exclamation point and angry face. I'm gonna spend time with Nikki while I can, exclamation point. Call me." And 3 hours later, he finishes his sister's tattoo. And an hour after that, he goes out to eat again, this time at Twig's, a gastropub in St. Albans. He eats dinner, he has drinks, and he gets a ride back to the Lang residence, and he again sleeps in the van with Emily's body still in the shower. And the next day, he goes out to Burlington with his sister, he gets coffee, and again, he goes out to eat. And again, he says nothing to Nicole about what he did to Emily. And after gallivanting around downtown, he heads back to St. Albans, and on his way, he stops at Hannaford to buy bleach. Because despite him continuing with his life as if nothing has happened, he does have a mess to clean up. And amongst all of these activities, he decides that he needs to make her body easier to carry, easier to move, and easier to discard. Mr. Ferlazzo uses this serrated saw and her arms, her legs, her feet, and her head. The same torso absolutely riddled with stab wounds, including one striking her heart. 3 different knives had her DNA on them. At least 3 different knives were used to stab her heart one time, her abdomen 8 times, and her back 9 times. Then he puts each piece of her body in garbage bags. And on Monday morning, before leaving for New Hampshire to get his Jeep, which he told you he needed in order to bury Emily's body in the woods, he just can't help himself. Knowing full well exactly where she is and what he has done to her, he texts her phone one last time. I don't deserve this. I don't deserve this.
But despite all this, he didn't take a guilty plea. So in December 2024, Joseph was brought to trial on the charge of murder. There, his story changed. He didn't deny that he'd killed Emily, but now he was claiming it was out of self-defense. Completely against what he said in that first interview, he now stated that Emily had been attacking him when he went for his gun.
And I swatted her with the throw pillow, and I said, "Stop hitting." That's when it happened. She said, "That's it. You're dead." And she threw her arm under her pillow, and she pulls her hand out with the Taurus. And
How were you feeling?
I was feeling horrified.
Were you afraid?
I was terrified. Like there was as soon as I saw that, I just felt this wave of heat, just red hot. I was holding my Glock, and she started just coming up at me, and I just fired. She was gonna shoot me.
He claimed that Emily had attacked him whenever she got jealous about his friends, citing his non-monogamous past.
It was her idea to be monogamous because she did say to me, "I don't want to share you, and I don't want you to share me," which I said, that's only going to last so long until you find someone that you're interested in, and then I will find someone that I'm interested in, and then we'll just have, whether it's group interactions or if it's separate interactions.
Putting aside this tension that may or may not have existed about the sexuality of your and Emily's relationship,
right?
How did the rest of your relationship go with her?
Well, there was obvious flaws to the communication breakdown, and it started to spur arguments. I left my device open for her to see who I was talking to.
Your phone?
My phone.
Yes.
And it led to, it led to violence. And
explain what you mean by
physical abuse started coming into our relationship, where she would go through my phone and then respond by beating on me.
Joseph said he'd come from a violent background.
Was there a time when you were growing up that social services, child welfare was called?
Yes, there was.
Tell me about how that came about.
Physical discipline from my mother. I believe that they were hanger marks.
Hanger?
Yeah, from being hit with a hanger. A close hanger.
Okay. So you were hit as a child?
Yes.
His mother, he said, had beat him frequently. This, according to him, had led him into a series of toxic relationships as an adult.
So you just testified that it was normal for to lash out physically when a person gets frustrated.
All right, it might not be normal for everyone, but most of my relationships, the women in my life have been aggressive and I guess I could say physically abusive.
Emily was part of this trend. The violence, he said, was impacting their future together.
She wasn't a gentle person. I wouldn't describe her as gentle. She came in and she said, I can't believe that, and threw everything in the tattoo room around, and she told me she was going to have my license revoked and ruin my business and tell all her friends to not get tattooed by me.
And how did this incident end?
I told her the same thing as I told her before, like, you got to stop hitting me. There's another way to work through this. And at this point, it had been multiple times, and that's when I suggested us getting a couples therapist. So.
And you did?
Yeah, we got a couples therapist. Her name was Dr. Webster. Emily had triggers, and I didn't want to trigger her to make her respond with violence. So I thought working with a therapist would be a good way that I would be able to understand her more. Like I said, we were talking a lot about introducing a child, and I thought if you're going to hit me, you're going to hit the child. I'd seen her kick my dog on occasion, and I was like, I was in love with her, and I wanted to move forward with our relationship and have a baby, and I was scared for the baby. So the therapist was the natural choice. Give us the tools that we need to have a healthy, safe space.
They frequently considered divorce, but they never went through with it.
You and Emily considered divorcing at various times over the year that you were married. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Both of you individually?
Yes.
You saw an attorney about getting a divorce?
I never saw an attorney.
Oh, okay. But you thought about it?
Yeah, so, I had gone and gotten papers from the courthouse multiple times.
You did?
Yes.
And do you know if Emily ever considered divorce?
Sometimes I would be pushing for it. Sometimes she would be pushing for it. We always would reconcile.
Okay. Why did you consider divorce?
Well, I wanted her to be more responsible with her financial obligations. I wanted her to pay for her own vehicle, her own insurance, her own cell phone plan, her own credit cards. I said I was fine paying for the food, but she had to step up and pay her bills that she came into the relationship with.
He said he never responded with violence when she attacked him, not until that fateful anniversary trip.
So they both had access to their guns that night. He comes back in from walking the dog. She's on the bed, scrolling through her phone, muttering. And he pours himself a drink, one of many that he had that night, many. Vodka and Red Bull. And at some point decides, okay, now I'm going to get into bed. In order to do that, he has to climb across Emily. Emily says something. You, something like that. picks up the red pillow, which was right on the little couch they had next to the bed, and this pillow, swats her in the head with it. She turns to him and says, "That's it, you're dead. That's it, you're dead." She elbows him in the groin. I have that backwards. First, she elbowed him in the groin. Then he picked up the pillow and swatted her. Then he saw, and she said, "That's it, you're dead." He saw her start to pick up the gun and shoot him. And you heard him tell you, "I was terrified. I knew she was going to shoot me." That was his belief based on circumstances of that evening, what she said to him, the history of their relationship. He truly believed that she was going to shoot him and that he had to shoot her with the Glock that was already in his hand in order to save his own life. That's what he told you yesterday. It's not what he told the police, but that's what he now remembers happening. He shot her because she disrespected him.
That this case and this crime is about ego. Mr. Ferlazzo's ego. And Mr. Ferlazzo's nearly 42-year-old ego being unable to accept his 22-year-old wife disrespecting him. That ego believed it was his right to cheat on Emily, to have relationships with other women, whether she liked it or not. That same ego believed it was his right to follow Emily one day when she wore her hair a different way and he didn't think she was being truthful to him. That ego was so inflated that even after shooting his wife in the head 2 times, stabbing and her body, bagging her up and discarding her like trash, he didn't tell his sister because he didn't want to make a bad impression with her boyfriend. So inflated that he didn't tell his sister because he'd promised not to, quote, dump his drama on her. He considered killing his wife drama. An ego so inflated that after killing her, taking her life because he didn't like the things she was saying to him, because she didn't want to be with him anymore, he calls her. He tells her that he doesn't deserve this. The state submits that it is Emily, and only Emily, that did not deserve this. All of the credible evidence presented by the state during this trial, the witness statements, the physical evidence, the forensic evidence, was checked and verified beyond a reasonable doubt.
It also appeared that this might not have been Joseph's first assault on a woman. He was accused of in 2018 by a woman who said he'd also drugged her and threatened to kill her. She said she'd met him at his tattoo parlor. He'd allegedly texted her afterwards, though she hadn't given him her number. They went on a few dates, but on the 3rd date, things took a dark turn. He apparently attacked her and said, "I'm going to stab you, but if you want to, you can text your family and friends and tell them your goodbyes." She said she managed to keep calm enough to escape with her life. No case was filed due to a perceived lack of evidence, and her application for a permanent restraining order was denied. Joseph denied that he'd assaulted her. But if this story was true, it was evidence of a pattern of behavior. First, allegedly, he tried it with this woman, who was also 20 years younger than him, and now, finally, he'd finished it with Emily. The post-mortem revealed that she had been shot twice in the head and then stabbed 18 times after she was already dead. He claimed that he and Emily had been drinking on the Friday night before the murder, but the toxicology report showed no alcohol in her system. He also spent the next few days sending her texts, as if she was still alive, though he claimed not to remember anything he'd done. The prosecutor pressed him on this in cross-examination, and he began to break.
I have no memory except for there was a memory about the like cutting into her leg with a knife and being sick over it.
Mr. Ferlazzo, you didn't cut into her leg with a knife. You cut into her leg with a saw.
His account was confused, contradictory, and full of inserted moments where he tried to express guilt and sorrow. All the emotions that would be appropriate for someone who'd killed the person they loved to save their own life. But the jury were not taken in. After 5 hours of deliberation, including listening to a 50-minute playback of Joseph's testimony, they convicted him of first-degree murder in December 2024, rejecting his claim of self-defense. They also could have considered 2 lesser charges instead, second-degree murder or voluntary manslaughter, but they chose neither, finding him guilty of the worst crime. There's a mandatory minimum sentence of 35 years. Today, he sits in jail, waiting his sentence, and Emily's family continues to grieve her life, which was cut so tragically short. What do you think about this horrific story? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay safe, keep up with our channel, and we'll see you